Well, the how dare they reaction is perfectly reasonable. People are really worried and really scared about what's going to happen this winter. But the reaction to blame the energy companies is completely wrong. And we already have 3 windfall taxes on the North Sea. And we would have those same taxes on onshore had the government not banned fracking. So what we need to do is look at what the solutions to this problem actually are. In the short term, there really aren't very many. We need to get new supplies of oil and gas from around the world because we've killed our own industry. And the thing to do to actually get that industry moving again is not to put more taxes on it. If you put those taxes on, the surefire thing is you get a temporary hit for whatever operations you have there at the moment. But it means that you won't get the new developments that we need to get the supply of gas in the UK up.
The thing is, there are loopholes to these windfall taxes. I'm quite sceptical about how much is actually going to be paid. And surely these energy companies should have been using their profits over, the past decades to invest in renewable technologies, and instead of just doling out cash in dividends.
Well, that's what they say they're doing, but they're in a bit of a double bind here because they have been investing in solar, wind, carbon capture and storage, hydrogen, early generation technologies with our millions every year, but it's never enough because, like everybody else, they can't solve the net zero low carbon transition quickly. So what's happening is they're getting blamed for what they're doing as well as what they're not doing. And fundamentally, they are oil and gas companies. We want them to be exploiting oil and gas reserves until such a time as we don't need those resources anymore. And at the moment, we're 20 to 30 years away from that. So attacking the companies, saying the UK is a hostile environment for them to invest, is precisely why we're in this mess. At the moment, we should be exporting oil and gas to the rest of Europe to help them fight Vladimir Putin. Instead, we've been reliant on the French, we've been reliant on the Belgians to bail us out during the summer, the government's policy having been such a disaster.
And what about, there's been an accusation by some energy companies and oil companies that they're not really passing on the profits when it comes to fuel for cars. They're not passing on the what's it called?
The changes in the wholesale price.
Yes, they're not passing it on to consumers. And even when Rishi Sunak announced that he would be cutting that fuel duty, they don't seem to be passing it on. Is that a misconception or not? Because I have noticed recently, over the last week or so, that the cost of petrol has gone down.
Yeah, it has. And what you're talking about is called the rocket and feather phenomenon, which when oil prices go up, the prices shoot up. And then when they come down, they float down like a feather. And that's real to a degree, but it's also trivial. So what you're talking about is there may be pennies difference between the price of fuel at different retail centres who bought their fuel at different times. It's no more significant than the different price of sandwiches in these retail forecourts. But if we're looking at where we can make changes quickly and make a big price difference, then fuel duty is the obvious target. Taking VAT off fuel duty so you're not double taxing. The government has control of those things. It doesn't have control over the individual price of petrol and diesel at over 8,500 different retail forecourts.
I mean, Andy, just in a bit of basic maths here, there are apparently 8 million households who are going to be plunged into fuel poverty. And quite frankly, people are struggling to pay their bills now. When people get that indebted, it becomes a risk to life because people get so upset they can't feed their families. People take their own lives. It strikes me, if there are 8 million households and bills are estimated to go up to around 3,600 a year, we're looking at something like 24 billion that might be needed. And that would cover the whole, their whole bills for the whole year. These energy companies, 10 billion in profits by Centrica, 7 billion by BP, and that's just for the quarter. You times that by 4, and you're looking in the region of about 70 billion, 3 times what is needed to pay the bills of the poorest people in this country. Do you not think that there can be some negotiation that these big energy companies at least pay people's winter fuel bills who really are on the very margins?
I'm not going to dispute your maths without checking it, but it's not the responsibility of BP forecourts, for example, to pay somebody's electricity and gas bill. These are 2 different markets. Centrica is investing £2 billion in gas storage, so we've got more standby power available for the winter when it actually matters. So we could take that £2 billion off them, but then we wouldn't have the gas storage. So these are choices. The case you've made there is either for more borrowing or higher taxes to pay higher welfare, and the welfare is definitely needed. how you get the money to pay for the welfare, it's not obvious you should just be targeting one part of the economy that's successful at the moment because of a global situation than any other. So you could do that tax on banks. The most successful, profitable company in the country is 3i, who make post-it notes. You could have a windfall tax on post-it notes and justify it on the same basis. But the narrative of greedy energy companies is very powerful and compelling, I agree, but it's simply wrong.